God will work with you, but not for you. By Lao Russell. Chapter 1. The 11th Hour. This message is given to man in the 11th hour of his threatened fall into another terrifying abyss of oblivion. It is written from the depths of my soul with the earnest desire that it will not be a lost voice crying in the wilderness. Once more, man's hard-built civilization has all the evidence of another fall into the chaos and oblivion of another dark age, and for the same reason it has always fallen. Up to the year 1900, the world had steadily progressed for 8 centuries, but since that time it has fallen to lower levels than it had risen in those 8 long centuries of upward struggle. The world was very friendly about the turn of the century. Wars and the threat of wars seemed to have passed out of world thinking. The pent-up hates of empire-building days were seemingly forgotten. World armament for the protection of neighbour against neighbour had practically ceased. Warships seemed useless and were destroyed by many great nations. Culture was at a high level all over the world. Day by day, great art salons and musical events multiplied, and geniuses were patronized to make the cultural world more beautiful. Then suddenly, in 1914, the old traits of the jungle reappeared, and man once more became the killer and slaughterer. Only this time he killed and slaughtered on the greatest scale ever known. Increasing world unity disappeared, and an unprecedented world disunity intensified. Hatred, fear, cruelty, enmity, and debauchery returned from its forgotten grave and shed the blood of over 40 million human beings in 30 years, besides enslaving countless millions of once free men. Cruelty unknown to the world, even in its 2 inquisitions, became commonplace. Never before in human history had nations enslaved their own people. They made slaves of conquered tribes or of other races, but never their own people, as part of this world has done and is still doing. Millions of our brothers, whom we should love, we steamed and baked alive in huge furnaces. Whole regiments were buried alive in graves they were forced to dig for their own burial. Brainwashing added a new and undreamed-of cruelty to man's category of heinous crimes. Today the whole world is divided against itself and must fall unless love and service come quickly enough to save it. No house can be divided against itself and survive, whether it be one home or a world of homes. If multiplied scientific power causes another Armageddon in our divided world, the civilization we have known will end. It is as impossible for peace to come by waging war as it is impossible for love to come by hating. Man wages war in the hope of finding peace, never realizing that the only fruit of war is war, and any seeming peace is but a truce of fear between wars. Have we not suffered enough to say, Lord, save us from ourselves, lest we destroy ourselves? Or must we suffer more and still more until there are too few left to fight? God's plan is for man to learn the lesson of love, upon which the universe is based. He can learn that lesson only by giving love to his neighbour, for re-giving by his neighbour. Service to one's neighbour is the highest principle of life. The value of every man to every other man is the greatest source of man's wealth and prosperity. World peace and happiness can only be acquired by the realization of man's asset value to man, and the conservation of that value by mutual service. Instead of that practice, mankind has been engaged in the lowest conceivable practice, which is man-killing for greed. Over 60 million men have been employed for 40 years in making man-killing the greatest of all world industries. Over $400 billion have been spent to kill men instead of obeying the Brotherhood of Man law. Man-killing itself was insignificant in numbers during past centuries. Its growth has been so rapid that our modern civilization has killed 30 times as many humans in 50 years as the total number killed in the 5 centuries preceding the 17th century. The difficulty in killing men was great when the bow and arrow was the principal weapon. It became increasingly easy to kill men as the bullet, projectile, torpedo, undersea boat, and bomber plane supplanted the bow and arrow. It is now possible to kill every man, woman, and child within a radius of 20 miles with only one bomb. Surely the ease of killing men has multiplied to undreamed-of proportions when we can now kill 5 times as many men in a few minutes as Napoleon killed in all of his campaigns. Is it not time, therefore, that thinking men should get together and look at our degenerating selves as we really are, instead of through a rosy mirror which pictures our brutal, barbarian, cruel civilization with an unearned halo of glory? Have we sufficient strength of character to admit that every high stage of our prosperity has been acquired by plunder, piracy, slave-making, slave-dealing, and vast exploitation of the weak by the might of greed in man? Is it not also time to give deep thought to the fact that our strictly man-ruled world has always been a warring world? Man has always expressed man-nature, inherited from his primate fighting jungle days, by marauding, conquering, piracy, slavery, and killing for greed, while women have loved and served and given life to the world. Where man and woman work together as one to make a happy home, they always succeed. Might it not be that a happy world is as impossible without the romance of unity and equality of world fathers and mothers as a happy home would be? Man-greed of man the conqueror and warrior has made the kind of world which faces us today. With love and romance crucified by greed, what hope is there for survival? There is only one sure way to save mankind from his threatened self-annihilation, and that one way is through new knowledge of man himself, dynamic knowledge of who he is, what he is, why he is here, what his relationship to other men is, what his relationship to God and his universe is. With this basic knowledge he will know his purpose on earth and knowingly work with God, who created him, instead of destroying himself by his own hand in working against God, as he is now doing. Ever since man emerged from the jungle of his beginnings, he has been trying to discover himself. Ever since that silent voice within him began to be faintly heard at the dawn of his consciousness, he has been forever asking, "Who am I? What am I? Why am I here?" Long centuries have passed, and man still asks those unanswered questions. Man himself is the greatest mystery of the as yet unknown. He has conquered the seas, the skies, the elements, and the very forces which move the universe. Man, the great discoverer of many things, has not yet discovered himself. He does not yet know man. He still despairingly asks, "Who am I? What am I? Why am I here?" The time has come when man can know if he will but listen with inner ears to the silent voice within himself. There have been those in past ages who have made that supreme discovery. These have tried to tell others, but their words had no meaning for primate man. Then came the Supreme One, who knew. He tried to tell man of his divine heritage, and of his God of love, and of his oneness with him and with all men, but he died on the cross. His words had no meaning for primate man of that day. They still continued to worship a God of fear, a wrathful God whom they sought to appease with blood sacrifice. Even unto this day, mankind has never fully comprehended the teachings of Jesus, the consummate scientist of all time, whose few words contain the greatest knowledge ever given to man. In them is the complete answer to the identity and purpose of man. In them is also all knowledge of cause, for which world-renowned scientists have so hopelessly sought. These still ask, who am I? What is gravity and energy and light, and what holds the atom together? Jesus plainly answered even these questions for the future ages of man, and pointed the way to their understanding, but men looked, and still continue to look, the other way. They do not comprehend. Even though men crucified Jesus, the divine messenger of love, who brought good into the world to supplant evil, there were those who believed on him. Love survived its crucifixion, even though those few who believed on him with great faith did not comprehend his deeper meanings. There are but few in our world of today who comprehend his deeper meanings. God, man, woman, and nature are the only elements man has to know and to interrelate in order to build an enduring civilization. Man's lack of knowledge of these elements and how to interrelate them has caused his hard-built civilizations to fall many times, as it is again about to fall unless man can be transformed by the renewing of his mind, in time to save himself from that dread catastrophe. This new concept is, in reality, a new understanding and a new interpretation of the teachings of Jesus, the only fully illumined Christ-conscious mystic of all time. Jesus gave to the world a complete way of life which would have endured forever if men had but comprehended him. Man was still too new, too close to the jungle of his primate days, to even faintly comprehend him. People of this electric, radio-conscious age are now fully able to comprehend his teachings, if they will but throw off old pagan traditions which have been too securely riveted into the thinking of this age. If Jesus were here today to give to the world his supreme knowledge, his greatest obstacle would be in overcoming the pagan misinterpretations of his own teachings, which have built an impregnable wall of superstition, evil, magic, and belief in the miraculous and supernatural around man's thinking. When one realizes that many of our highest intellectuals believed in witchcraft, and burned witches alive within the last 200 years, it is easy to see how strong a hold early pagan thinking has upon modern thinking. This will be the greatest obstacle in presenting the real meaning of Jesus' teachings herein. There are many, however, who are ready for new comprehension. If those who read these teachings are sufficiently open-minded to accept them, then we can in fact save this world from its threatened oblivion and replace it with an enduring world of peace, happiness, and goodwill to men. This high pinnacle can be reached only by unifying the whole world into one family. Let us therefore transform the world by the renewing of the world mind.